Hi, this is Alessandra for July's AMA Monday. So for the first question, it says here, share a good read book. So for me, a good read book would actually be, I'm not sure about the original language, but the English translation was I Decided to Live as Me. I was reading that during a time where everything was so hectic. I was very busy, and it just brought me a sense of peace, and it was very enlightening to read, despite all the chaos and such. So yeah, another also would actually be, I think that was The Power of Positive Thinking. I haven't finished the book because it's quite lengthy. But so far so good. It's also very enlightening. It helps me a lot to change my perspective and understanding lots of things, different situations that you could actually interpret differently. It really depends on the person, however. So second question is actually, who is your celebrity style icon? There isn't really a specific celebrity that I'm trying to imitate or whatsoever, just kind of, I guess, get inspiration sometimes when I see their pieces, when they try to mix and match outfits. One could be, not sure if a lot of people know her. Her name is Ida Andu, and another, of course, would be didnt. If we're referring to local, but most of the time I do just randomly get ideas or inspiration from I guess Olzang pictures, Korean Olzang pictures, and yeah, that would be it. For the third question, it actually says, who is your closest female colleague and SOPHI that you consider a friend or closest friend? So since this actually specifies female, it's, I guess, very narrow. Before I even entered SOPHI, I was already friends with Nicole, so I guess she would be my closest person here. But I guess after SOPHI, the person that I can trust actually is Melanie. And yeah, so far, and then everyone else is actually very friendly, very approachable, so it doesn't really isolate them. But then when it comes to other things personal stuff, or it could be outside of work, yeah, I would consider it to be Nicole and Melanie. Okay, so for the fourth question, it says here it's very situational. While driving a car, you saw an older man and a kid crossing the street. And the brake didn't work. So what are you going to hit first and why? I have no idea who asked this. Very concerning that someone would ask me anything Monday. But since the question doesn't really specify if it's the foot brake or if it's the handbrake, then yeah, I'd probably hit the handbrake first. And I guess after that, basing on as far as I know of cars, then I would kind of turn the wheel so that I would be able to avoid these two pedestrians. Very concerning, whoever asked this. Question number 5, what would it be and why if given the power to solve one global problem with a snap of a finger? Something very Thanos-like. So personally, I'm very concerned with climate change, since this is actually something that is getting very out of hand. Sounds very Miss Universe-like, but yeah, because climate change doesn't only affect humans, it also affects animals and all the things that live on Earth. So it's very concerning if this type of problem isn't attended to right away, in which, as I can see with the tons of articles that are going around, is that all of us are having a very difficult time in trying to solve this. And as we can even see in our own surroundings, that the weather does keep changing. It doesn't seem like a very, it doesn't seem very major, especially when we're very busy, we're very packed with our schedules. But these are actually one of the effects of it, wherein, you know, like, the weather keeps on changing, and like people do get sick, you know, because since the tendency of humans is to focus more on themselves and how it affects them rather than how it affects others. So yeah. Alright, so the sixth question is most unforgettable, most humiliating moment of your high school. So I'm gonna divide this into two, since there's like a comma in between unforgettable and most humiliating. So for most humiliating, I think it's when it was graduation, or I think that was moving up graduation, wherein because I am a dancer, so it's like the arts awards, and we didn't know that there were still people coming up to the stage, and we just like automatically bowed in front of the whole school. It was very humiliating because everyone actually laughed. Like, it was, yeah, I will never forget that. Like, remembering high school and just leaving the memory of us not very diligent in graduation practices. For most unforgettable, I guess it would be all the times that I did compete for my school, representing my college when it comes to dance competitions and such. It was very fulfilling. There were a lot of like struggles, however. Yeah, I will always be going back to those memories, however, even if like I grow older. Alright, so next is, what is something that you know now that you did not know before? So personally, I think what I didn't know before was the fact that I didn't need to control every little thing or every little aspect in my life, because for me, I am very organized and very neat, I'd say. I always like things to go a certain way, to be arranged in a certain way, but then up until recently, basically during the pandemic, that's when I started realizing that not everything has to be under my control. You can just basically go ahead and, you know, like handle things once you get there. Just go with the flow, because I think if you try to control every single aspect or every single thing, it's gonna result in like lots of anxiety, overthinking, and basically it's self-sabotage, and it's not gonna be good for you at all. Okay, so what was the first thing you bought with your own money? Thinking back, it was actually like clothes. I think it was on like online shopping. But if we're like referring to major purchases, then I guess it would be an impulse purchase of like an iPad, and that's where like I was able to see the fruit of my hard work. Okay, so next is, what will people say to your funeral? This one, probably what people would say, especially those that are very close to me, they will say RIP or like A. Like, it would probably be like that. But for, I guess like when it comes to like serious matters, not so sure, probably people would just like say, oh, this was like a very bright-haired girl at the office or something. And yeah, because I guess like that's how people would see me, and it really depends on the person, however. But yeah, but if like someone close to me would probably like say something at my funeral, yeah, they'd probably say those two phrases, like RIP, A. So what would you do if you were invisible for a day? You know, personally, there's lots of things that would come into mind. it's always those common things like, oh, I'd go into a mall, steal something, because they are never gonna figure it out who's taking stuff. But another thing that came to mind was to go on a flight. Probably, of course, since I'm invisible, I go naked, and right on that flight, just travel wherever for an entire day. And they're never gonna figure that out, that I was actually there on the airplane flight, and I get free trips. Do you have any weird superstitions? So my relatives or my guardians actually are very superstitious people. So there are times that I do tend to believe matters like that. One superstition that I do practice is putting a cover on the mirror, like at night or whenever I'm not using it. Cause I also heard this from like a Japanese individual that was like my friend, and he mentioned that it's a trait in Japan to always cover their mirrors because it's somewhat of a portal, and it's very it's very likely that there could be otherworldly things going on. So that's one of mine. Another is like whistling at night. Whenever someone does that and I'm around, I immediately tell them not to do so, because I don't know, I guess like the elderly always say that it's bad, it's going to attract things that we can't see. So yeah, I think that so far that's like two of the most that I'm actually still very faithful to. Okay, so what's the worst advice you've ever given someone? For me, the worst advice that I could have ever given someone was when, I'm the type of person that I never run out of things to say, only because for me personally, I consider a lot of things, like a lot of factors, a lot of perspectives, a way that other people can understand certain situations, which creates like the problem. So whenever like my friends would come to me, that's kind of how I would explain to them. But the worst advice I would ever give someone is probably when I would tell them but this one is in Bisaya, so it's like that's your decision anyways. Because sometimes even when you do tell the person the advice that they needed, but it's not exactly what they wanted to hear, they would much prefer like to go the other way instead. So which is why I would always tell them like, "Iwo with that," or like, "That's yours anyway. Like, it's your decision." Like even if I tell you to do something, it's what you decide is going to be always up to you. It's never going to be up to another person. So what's the worst pickup line you've ever heard? I am an avid hater of pickup lines. For a start, so most likely the worst pickup line that I've ever heard, I can't even remember, since my subconscious decides that, okay, you're not going to remember that ever again because it's that bad. Okay, so what's your favorite cocktail drink and why? So generally, whenever I'm out with friends or like at new places, what I always get for cocktails is an amaretto sour. That's really just my top one favorite. Sometimes it does let me down, especially when it's not like the place that I usually go to. But other than that, I also have another favorite. This one was actually named after me. It's in Asmara, and in Asmara, there's like, I guess, off the menu drinks. So the name of my favorite cocktail drink is actually Alessandra's Affair. And I don't know, I have no idea like what are the contents. I just find it like really good because the bartender there actually based it on my personality, and for me, he got it pretty right. And I did have like a couple of friends here at the office to try it out and compare it with the other like off the menu drinks, and actually all of them preferred my drink. So okay, so what would you do if fear was not a factor and you could not fail? In my understanding so far is that there are actually a lot of things that are always affected by fear and fear of failing, because it hinders a lot of people into like taking risks. So what would you do if fear was not a factor? I guess like anything that would come up into mind, like take a dance class, take this opportunity to like fly outside or whatnot, like anything, no matter how spontaneous it would be, as long as fear was not affecting it, or was not like playing a factor in the outcomes, and as well as failing. Yeah, I think that would be my way to go about it. Yeah. When you hear the word esophagus, what does it mean? So for this one, since I am a medical student, it's going to be leaning more into the medical terms. Well, of course, it's just, esophagus is basically just a passageway for food, drinks, and whatever, so that they could move down into your stomach. And yeah, like other than that, nothing else comes to mind. Right, so social media is now a very powerful tool of communication. Often it is used negatively, be it to criticize or hurt someone. How should you deal with people who tend to misuse this? So my take on this is actually the fact that it is really up to the person if they want to deal with it. Personally, speaking into how I would handle things is that I wouldn't deliberately decide, oh, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to handle all these people that are trying to criticize, hurt someone by the internet. Because literally, social media, the internet is very vast. It's very open. You can't really control every single thing or every single like entrance for it. So what would be much better, as awful as it sounds, with how practical I would decide to handle it, is I would just choose to ignore things, but only when, for example, when it does get out of hand, like in very severe physical terms, I think that's the only time where I would interfere, because it really depends on the person, on how they would allow it to affect themselves. And yeah, as cool as the world is, you should really not, like, you cannot have a weak heart, you cannot have a weak persona. You always have to have this strong persona, or it's you that's going to be at the short end of the stick. Yeah. Why red head? If this is referring to my hair, of course, it's very vibrant. Red, because I have no idea. Like, it's not like specifically. I did go red before. It's always like a color that I like. I feel like it suits me a lot, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like humor into why I colored my hair. But then I think like most of the time people do misinterpret it, as if like, oh, like she's not straight, like that. I think that's how other people interpreted it, wherein like, oh, this person isn't straight, she has like colored hair. But no, it's just that like, generally when there's like a specific point in my life, I always feel like the need to color my hair. So for the past few months, that's what's been happening, from dark red to, I guess like it did fade to like brown, pink, orange, and yeah, then I'm back to red, but then it's much more bright. Yeah. So when do you say you are effectively doing your work or assigned job? For me, subjectively, is I feel like whenever there are remarks, or it's either there are remarks and they say like, oh, you did a very good job with this, like people were able to notice it or something, or another is that another way is that they don't have anything to say at all, like nothing negative about it. So meaning like my interpretation of it would be like, okay, I'm doing a good job, I'm doing the right thing. And yeah, like after that, like I guess when it comes to like physical terms, of course there would be like ways to acknowledge like, the hard work of a person. That would be how I can say that I was effectively doing my job. Next is, what type of influence are you and your coworkers? So generally speaking, I try to make it very surface level how I interact with a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my coworkers. But as much as possible, I really want to appear as like very bubbly, very approachable, very like energetic, like person that they can like absolutely jam with, someone that isn't very like intimidating, since a lot of people do say that my facial features are very intimidating, which like kind of like makes them hesitate in approaching. But yeah, generally like as to influence others, like I just want to be able to radiate positivity in the office, especially like a lot of the tons of workload. It's very important to be reminded to enjoy something rather than always like be burdened of the fact that, oh, it's work. What advice can you give your colleagues if you see them loiter most of the time? So actually, I mean, this does happen, from time to time. Whenever I do see someone loiter, I do tell them, like I just like very calmly approach them and just like tell them like, hey, you shouldn't be like out here. If you're going to the CR, you should just go to the CR. Because you can be given file note, and we don't want that. We just want to keep our like tracks very clean, and yeah, so that like no other problem arises. Because it is for like the well-being of the employee anyway. For the last question, it says here that your hair color is eye-catching. Which salon did you have it done? So I don't think I am allowed to tell it because it's not affiliated to SOPHI. But it's just like a new salon somewhere in Manila, and yeah, they did pretty good with my hair. Yeah. Alright, so that's it for our AMA Monday for July, and don't forget to follow all of our pages, our social media accounts, and stay tuned for the next one.